This is not a Minecraft video. This is going to be creative build, no commentary, well, yeah, probably none, and it's eye candy for my granddaughter, and also a clean recording of the story that I'm doing for her. And I've only got until May. I've only got like 30 days hardly to get this accomplished, the reading of the book, the eye candy. Of course, I don't have to do all of it before her birthday, but for this child's book, I'm going to do it this way, so that maybe while I read it to her in real life, she can look at the screen, and like we did the other book. So with that being said, I'm going to start my recording, and I'm going to just play creative. So yes, I'm cheating the bidgy boogie boo out of this. Alright, and we'll go here. Oh, okay, my speaker's here. And we'll hit play, and I will shut up. And this is a recording of Starry River of the Sky. Reading of Starry River of the Sky by Grace Lynn for my granddaughter, Liliana Marie Morgan. Chapter 1. Rindy was not sure how long the moon had been missing. He only knew that for weeks the wind seemed to be whimpering as if the sky were suffering. At first he had thought the moans were his own, because his body ached from hiding in the merchant's moving cart. However, it was when the cart had stopped for the evening, when the bumping and knocking had ended, that the groans began. The sky had moaned and cried for many nights before Rindy dared to peek out. When he heard the donkey being led away and the nighttime wails beginning again, Rindy crawled from behind the gangs of wine, huge pottery vessels as big as he was, and poked out his head from the covered cart. Yet when he looked up into the sky, he saw nothing. The stars had dimmed to little more than faded shadows, and the mournful noises echoed in the blackness. It was then that Rindy realized the moon was missing. He thought it would appear the next night, or the night after. Rindy was sure the moon would return, as it always had, glowing as if it were cut from the sky with a pair of sharp scissors. But it did not. Every evening after the merchant had left, Rindy crept from the stifling, sticky cart into the fresh night air and peeked up. And every time, the starry river of the sky was empty. "You must have wine," a voice said. The merchant. In the cart, Rindy froze. Another moonless night had passed, and the darkness inside the covered cart had thinned with the morning's arrival. The hitching of the donkey had jerked Rindy awake, his head knocking against one of the clay vats. But it was the sound of voices that alarmed him. "It is the day of the 5 poisons. I can sell you a gang," the smooth voice of the merchant said. "I own an inn, not a tavern," another voice replied. "I don't need a gang of wine. That's too much." "Ah, but having some wine stocked does make your place a tavern," the merchant replied. "You offer tea and food in the dining room of your inn, do you not? Offer wine as well, and your guests will gladly pay." "I just need enough wine to protect us from the noxious animals," the innkeeper said. "For me to drink and write the Wang symbol on my daughter's forehead. 1 jug will be fine." But it is the famous sun wine," the merchant said, "and I can give you a very good deal." "Sun wine," the innkeeper said. Rindy could hear the hesitation. "Don't buy any." Rindy begged silently, trying to quiet his thumping heart. "Don't open the cart." "I can sell it in the city for a high price, but it has been so hot, and I'm afraid the wine may spoil before I get there," the merchant continued. "You can see, I've even had a cover on my cart. It's better for me to sell you some now. We can include my last night's lodging in the cost." As noiselessly as possible, Rindy scrambled to the back of the cart, while the men outside agreed on a price. Rindy squeezed between the two gangs furthest from the opening, the huge clay containers compressing him like meat in a dumpling. The cart opened, and Rindy grasped his bag close to him, feeling the harshness of his rice bowl through the cloth. The merchant and the innkeeper struggled to remove a gang, rocking the cart back and forth. Rindy scarcely breathed, and the men grunted as they pushed and shoved. Neither noticed the small figure well hidden in the shadows of the remaining gangs. With a rude curse from the merchant, the vat finally dropped safely to the ground with a thud. Both men leaned against the cart, and the sun glinted from the back of the merchant's bald, perspiring head. As the innkeeper sighed from the exertion, Rindy slowly let out his breath. Safe, Rindy thought as he listened to the men finish their deal. He closed his eyes in relief. What's that? The innkeeper said. Rindy's eyes flew open. Hands and arms reached toward him, grabbing and pulling. He squirmed and struggled, but there was no escape. Rindy was roughly dragged out of the cart, and soon he was staggering and squinting in the bright daylight. A stowaway, the merchant growled, his friendly manner disappearing. The merchant was wiry and sun-brown, and his hands were as strong as iron chains. One hand clamped the back of Randy's neck in a relentless grip, while the other rose to strike him with a vicious blow. Rindy cringed, but the innkeeper grabbed the merchant's arm before it struck. "He's just a boy," said the innkeeper, who was shaped a bit like a jug of wine himself. "He doesn't look much older than my daughter." "Well, you can have him then," the merchant said with an unkind laugh. He shoved Rindy to the ground. As Rindy coughed up the dust and the innkeeper helped him to his feet, the merchant quickly closed the cart, climbed into the driver's seat, and grabbed the reins of the donkey. "Didn't you say your son left?" he mocked. "Take this one. He's included with the wine." "But," the innkeeper said, as the wheels of the cart spilt past him, "but—" Swiftly the merchant drove away, deaf to the innkeeper's stammers. The innkeeper gaped from the cart to the boy, and then to the cart again. The boy clung his cloth bag, and the cart blurred in the distance. The innkeeper stared blankly at it. And when the merchant and his cart finally disappeared into the flat line of the horizon, Master Chow, the innkeeper, was still staring. Chapter 2. Rindy's muscles were soft as uncooked tofu, and his face as friendly as an angry tiger. But Master Chow said finally, "I do need somebody to help with the chores in the inn." "A chore boy?" Rindy scowled with scorn, but then he saw the long, wide, empty road in front of him, and the dust from the merchant's cart floating in the air like a fading ghost. The grass was yellow and withering, and a quick scan around showed, besides the shabby inn, a handful of broken-down stone houses. "There's nothing here," Rindy thought with shock. "Where am I?" "What kind of chores?" Rindy said, forcing the words from his mouth. He would stay for now, he told himself, but just for now. "Well, first," Master Chow said, "I need you to help me bring this wine into the inn." Rindy was not much help with moving the wine. He could not get his puny arms around the gang, much less lift it. Master Chow grunted and huffed and panted, and had only succeeded in moving the wine a few feet when Rindy said, "If we put it on its side, we could roll it." Master Chow stopped and said, "What's your name?" "Rindy." "Well, Rindy," Master Chow said, "that is a good idea." Rindy's dark frown lightened, and they tilted the gang and slowly rolled it into the inn, the hot sun burning their necks. But when they brought it into the inn, into the back storeroom, a small figure ran like lightning, and Rindy's scowl returned. It was Master Chow's youngest daughter, Pai. Her round face, still shone the remains of her breakfast, and the bottoms of her pant legs were brown with dirt. Rindy wrinkled his nose, looking at her as if she were a worm in a half-eaten peach. "Who's that boy?" Pai said, stopping mid-stride. "That's Rindy," Master Chow said, without turning. He was mixing regular powder into a small bowl of wine. "Rindy is going to take over some of Jiming's chores. Rindy, this is my daughter, Pai." Rindy sniffed and rolled his eyes away from her in contempt. Pai's eyes narrowed. However, Master Chow seemed not to notice, and brought Pai in front of him. He gently pushed her tangled hair from her cherry blossom pink face. She stood as still as a carved statue, with only her eyes moving, as her father dipped his finger into the wine mixture and carefully wrote Huang, a symbol of power, with it on her forehead. Rindy watched from the doorway, and a strange, jealous anger filled him. "That should protect you from the noxious animals," Master Chow said to her, and sighed. "The day of 5 poisons already. Spring was hardly here, now it's summer." Pai didn't answer, for her eyes were glued on Rindy in the doorway. He had been making rude faces at her, pretending to be each of the 5 poisoned animals: snake, scorpion, centipede, spider, and toad. His last impression was of a noxious toad, which he made by bulging his eyes and sticking out his tongue. "Why is that boy here?" Pai said, her lips pursing. "I told you," Master Chow said. "With Jiming gone, we need someone to help with the chores." "We don't need him," Pai protested. "Jiming will come back." Master Chow sighed again, this time a heavy sigh that felt like a stone in the water. "Your brother made his decision," he said, standing up stiffly. Without another word, Master Chow walked out of the room. Pai stared after her father with forlorn eyes, and then looked at Rindy. The strange, jealous anger from before had lingered and strengthened, and he jeered at her. "Baby," Rindy said. "Too young to drink wine, so you have to wear the Huang sign. Watch out for the noxious animals." Pai glared. "Horrible!" She hissed at him and ran out of the room. Chapter 3. To Rindy, this small village of clear sky and its inn were horrible. Pai was forced to show him everything, and she fumed with anger as he sneered at the rough wood floors, the humble broken-down houses, and the yellowing weeds dying between the rocks and the walls. The only thing Rindy could not scorn was the strange, endless plain of stone that lay beyond the inn. The smooth rocks stretched beyond sight, as if someone had wiped away part of the landscape with a rag. "What is that?" Rindy gasped in spite of himself. "It's the stone pancake," Pai answered. She was glad there had been at least one thing in this horrid boy could not mock. "My ancestor made it." "Made it?" Rindy said in disbelief. "You're lying." "It's true," Pai insisted. "My ancestor was a great man." "Your ancestor." "My ancestor was the—" Rindy sputtered and then stopped. "What did your ancestor do?" Pai said. "Mine moved a mountain." Rindy bit his lip in frustration. His ancestors were far greater than the ancestors of this dirty-faced girl, but he swallowed his words bitterly and instead said, "How?" The story of the man who moved a mountain. When this place was called the Village of Endless Mountain, my esteemed grandfather moved here. He was an extraordinary man. He was so determined and courageous that when he wanted his tea made of Nanling water, he journeyed for hundreds of miles to the long river and braved the brutal and violent waves to get it. He was so smart and clever that he never lost a game of chess in his entire life. He was strong and powerful that he pulled 2 oxen by their tails through the street. So wondrous was my honored great-grandfather that all, even the spirits above, looked upon him with admiration. So, when one morning he looked out his window and was displeased, the ground seemed to join his family with their trembling. "I see nothing out my window," my great-grandfather cried. "Why can I not see the sky, the sun, and clouds?" "Honored father," his two sons and wife bowed at his feet, "our house is next to the mountain. You do not see the sky in your room because the mountain blocks it." My esteemed great-grandfather sputtered, "I must be able to see the sky. I cannot let the mountain block the heavens. We will move the mountain." He gathered shovels and pails, and he and his obedient sons began to dig. One bucket at a time they began to carry the mountain away. Obviously, this seemed an impossible task, like emptying the ocean with a rice bowl. Yet my honored great-grandfather was not discouraged, and day by day he and his sons carried away buckets of earth. All the villagers came to watch in amazement as my great-grandfather and his sons attempted to move the mountain. Their awed whispers carried to the clouds, and the spirit of the mountains overheard. The spirit gazed down at my great-grandfather and his tireless, unyielding shoulders, bearing away stones of the mountain, and was alarmed. The spirit took human form and rushed down. "Why are you trying to remove the mountain?" the spirit asked my honored great-grandfather. "To carry it away, bucket by bucket. Is that not impossible? Even if you were to live 100 years and work every day, you could not achieve it." My esteemed grandfather brushed away the words. "I will move this mountain," he said, "and if I do not move this mountain in my lifetime, my sons will continue my work, and their sons after that. Eventually, this mountain of annoyance will be gone." The mountain spirit heard the truth in my honored great-grandfather's words and began to quake and shiver with fear. Without another word, the spirit left. And the next morning, the sun streamed into my great-grandfather's room. He leaped from his bed and ran outside. The mountain was gone. Instead, there was an empty stone field that seemed as flat as a plate and as endless as the sky. My honored great-grandfather stood with pride. He had moved the mountain. And that is why we have the stone pancake pie, he finished. And this is where the mountain used to be before it fled from my great-grandfather's power and wisdom. "No one uses it?" Randy said. "Nothing grows on it. No one builds on it, and no one travels on it," Peggy said, shaking her head. "It's so big that if you walk on it far enough, you'll see nothing but sky and the flat stone and get lost. Sometimes we use a small bit of it near the end for celebrations like weddings, but usually it's left bare." "I can't believe it," Randy said. But the never-ending flat land drew out in front of him, and he could think of no other explanation. "The missing mountain is also why this place is called Village of Clear Sky," Peggy couldn't help adding, "because the sky is clear of a mountain." Clear of the moon, too, Randy thought grimly. That evening, in his new bedroom at the inn, the moans of the sky returned. Randy clenched his teeth and covered his ears with his hands until finally he glared out his window into the dark. Below the groaning of the night, he heard the satisfied snores coming from the bedroom of Master Chow. Was Randy the only one who heard the sky? Was it just in his head? Why wouldn't it leave him alone? Another cry echoed. "Stop it!" Randy whispered fiercely into the moonless night. "I'm not going to listen to your whining anymore." But the night just gave a mournful noise in answer, and Randy scowled. He would forget about the sobbing sky, the missing moon, everything. He would forget it all. He turned from the window, shutting his eyes. There was nothing to see anyway. Outside, there was only blackness and the poor village of clear sky. End of part 1.